Well, you all finally did it. You all badgered me enough to make me spend double on the Nike Mind series of shoes on StockX. And I was trying to avoid them because I knew how this review was gonna go. And you all pulled me back in. So kudos to all of you and your persistent efforts in the comments section. This is the Nike Mind 002, the Nike Mind 2, means this is the shoe version, there's a mule, and Nike was really deliberate in their marketing of the Nike Mind 1 and 2, not as just like a comfort recovery shoe, but as a shoe that actually has an active purpose. This shoe is meant to quote unquote reawaken the mind or the foot, body, and mind. What does it say? It's meant to reawaken the foot, body, and mind, and it's supposed to make you feel more present and mindful, and that is by activating the mechanoreceptors in your foot. I'm gonna get into all this and if there's actually any science behind any of this and if this is any bit new. But the one thing that I did notice first off the bat, and you know if I'm taking out a shoe box, you know things are about to go off the rails. But if you look on the shoe box right here, it says Nike Mind Science Department right here. Now, this really should, this doesn't mean anything, mind science, right? This should just say neuroscience. But if you put neuroscience on the box or on the label on the shoe, that means you're gonna have to hold up to those types of scientific rigors and the rigors of neuroscience research. And so I think they were very careful in making up their own kind of word for it. There are some definite use cases to these. There's some things they do very, very well. And a lot of the marketing claims of these, I do believe are accurate, are true. It's just, do you really want it? Do you really need it? And are there other shoes, sandals, clogs, mules that do it better, or can you just do it better on your own? That is a whole other thing because like I said, I spent quite a bit of money on these and these are just pricey at retail. So I know a lot of people are buying these as just kind of a comfort shoe, kind of a kick around shoe, a daily driver. And especially for those people, I think you might not be disappointed, you might be disappointed, but you're definitely, it's not gonna be what you think it is, put it that way. So let's get into it. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on the uppers because I really want to get into the actual mechanics of the shoe, but I will say it is a very comfortable foam upper. This is basically just all foam paneling. It's got a woven surface texture to it. It's very comfortable, it's very nice. The tongue is really padded. No lace irritation whatsoever. It is very comfortable lockdown. Entry into these is super easy, ridiculously low heel counter. Heel slippage is moderate, but it's also a casual shoe, so I didn't notice it whatsoever. The one thing about the uppers is they look perforated all through them. They are not. The tongue is perforated, the tongue breathes really well. The forefoot does not. It looks like it's got all these holes in it, right? Like you can see my finger through them, but when you actually take the padding, there's not. So breathability test. Fog's getting out of the tongue. That's really the only place it's getting out of. I would assume if you're in some pretty hot climates, this is gonna start to hold on to some moisture. So that was the one thing I noticed in the uppers I wasn't a huge fan of. I do like the padded shell though, especially for just a kick around shoe or a quote unquote daily driver or something like that. I do like that. It's just that if you're looking for breathability, then I would probably just, go poke holes where these actually are, because it's not like you need it for containment. I mean, this isn't advice, but if I were gonna have these for a long, if I were just gonna buy these for a long period of time, I'd probably be poking holes through this just to get a little more breathability. All right, but getting into the real meat and potatoes of this review, the midsole teardown. Now, the first thing you'll notice is there is no removable insole, and that is by design. Because now, as you can see, there is, a lot of movement here with these orange pegs, right? And they actually do move somewhat independently. They look like, we'll call them mushrooms so I don't get demonetized on this, but they do have a lot of independent motion. Obviously they're guided in these holes, but they do move a lot. And then they're glued into the strobe board, so the strobe board will actually move with you. Now, if you had an insole, right, it's just an orthotic, but if you had an insole moving, axially here, front to back, side to side, then you'd just be shearing all over the place. You wouldn't feel these pegs down here, and you wouldn't get the benefit that these shoes have, however mild it might be, which was like we'll get into. And so I do like that these do move, right? And you actually do get this effect. The next thing you'll notice is this is incredibly curved, right? You do have a really aggressive arch in these things. And I thought that was gonna be really annoying. It is not. These pegs, because they move, and there's actually a bunch of them on your arch, right? Like in here, there's a lot of them in there. And so someone like me with a pretty rigid high arch, I get annoyed with really any sort of molded arch that's not an orthotic that I like or something like that. And in these, every time I moved, they kept getting out of my way. They kept pressing down, or it was really, really nice. And so it does accommodate a lot of foot types. That is the good part about these. There is no shank in these. Obviously, the shoe is meant to act as a wobble board, so if there is a shank in there, there's some real bad issues going on in the design team. The foam on these things feels like a very, very dense rubberized EVA. I think this is probably just Nike ground contact foam, same stuff like you see in the Tatum 1. On the microscope, it looks like rubberized EVA, feels like rubberized EVA. On the bounce height test, I did do it just for fun. I got 26 centimeters in the rear foot, 32 in the forefoot. The rear foot is because there really wasn't any place for the ball to bounce, right? In the forefoot, much more surface area, flat surface. So I think 32 is really where you want to go. Tensiometer, it does take 37 newtons to get this thing to 45 degrees, and that's because there is just a lot of foam. It's wide here, right? So it's just a lot to bend. It does bend appropriately. I can't believe that. You really can't smush it, which is great, not just because there is so much glued foam pegs in there. The foam is super dense, right? And we'll talk about in the fit section, but that arch really does help that. And in terms of torsional stability, as you can see, it is meant to move all over the place. It is wide in the midfoot though, so it is more stable than it would look in my hands. There is still issues with that, we'll get into that. That being said, do these actually do anything? Do these actually activate your mechanoreceptors? Do they really invigorate the mind and body? Here's how I'll say it. They have an incredibly mild proprioceptive effect. Now, proprioception is your body's ability to tell your brain where you are in space. And you have a ton of these proprioceptors in your foot. What I noticed is it felt like octopus suckers or suction cups on the bottom of my foot. That's what these feel like when you walk. And it is a pretty wild sensation. It is different, right? Like you put them on, and I first thought to myself, this is gonna feel like a little bit wobbly under my foot. No. It feels different than just about anything I've put on. And it feels different every time I'm in them. Now, number one, that's because when you're walking, like you're trying to make it feel differently. The thing is though, these aren't just like a comfort shoe. They're constantly giving you that suction cup feeling underneath of your foot. So yes, it's novel, but it gets old. Right? It gets old pretty quick. And so for a daily driver, like if you think these are gonna be the React X Rejuvenate slides or slip-ons, you're in for a rude awakening. They are not. They do give you quite a bit of sensory feedback on the bottom of your foot. Now they're also incredibly wobbly. These things sit at 2 degrees inverted. Why is that? Because I sit at 2 degrees inverted there, because I have a rigid high arch with a swooped in heel. I have an inverted heel. And so they'll just sit wherever you sit, right? And then when I actually put pressure on them, they go to 7 degrees everted. So they allow a ton of motion, and that is by design. So the other thing I noticed is with these is that the more I use them it was inconsistent, because sometimes these would get stuck and then they wouldn't give like the actual suction cup effect. And then all of a sudden I kind of stomp them out a little bit and then they would do what I want. And then they would actually have that suction cup feeling again. Like I said, it's a mild effect, right? If you're really looking to give yourself better proprioception, better awareness, let's say you play basketball, tennis, or pickleball, volleyball, whatever, and you want to have better awareness, honestly, the most bang for your buck you're going to get is with a wobble board or a BAPS board or barefoot shoes, because you can, number one, train a little more aggressively and in a controlled environment, as well as if you're training to get more, let's say, mindful on court, or better proprioception on court, better court feel, any of that stuff, it's all kind of the same stuff. You want to be activating your muscles, you want to be putting your body through those ranges of motion, doing the actual moves you're going to be doing, whether if that's serving and volleying in tennis, doing, step back threes in basketball, whatever. Why do you think Steph Curry practices the way he does? Right? If you watch any of his practices on YouTube, he's doing very deliberate movements, and they're movements that he has to be able to do very quickly, and his body has to be able to react to, because number one, he does have chronic ankle instability, but he has to be able to get out of the way of people much bigger than he is very quickly to get shots off. And that's how he kind of does his quote unquote mindfulness. And so, yeah, you're going to be more aware of your surroundings of these for sure. Do you want to be more aware of your surroundings the way these do that? Maybe. Are they going to make you more mindful? Are you all of a sudden going to become a yogi in these? Are you all of a sudden going to be, so aware of your own feelings and emotions and be like Jerry Seinfeld and, they all start coming out? No. If anything, they basically just kind of show you where your strike patterns are, which is cool. Is it worth the money that they cost, especially if you're looking for more like a comfort-focused shoe? Probably not. You're better off with the React X Rejuvenate. This also is nothing new. If you remember from the early 2000s, the Adidas Adissage, right? It basically is like a pebbled shower on the bottom of your foot, right? But the bottom of the sandal was flat. So you kind of got a massaging effect, got some proprioceptive effects. And I thought those did awesome. Those were like all the rage back in the early 2000s. You think these had a lot of hype. Oh my God, the Adissage is unreal. The other shoe that did this more recently was the Skechers Shape-Ups. Now those had a mild rocker, they introduced some instability. Really all those did was create an ankle sprain risk and equinus, which is tightening of your Achilles tendon, which these could also do too. So if you're gonna wear these a lot, you better stretch your Achilles tendon because they will introduce some equinus because you're gonna be clamping down on your Achilles and your peroneals. So for that reason, like I said, wobble board, BAPS boards, barefoot shoes, I think are gonna do it's going to be much more powerful for you if you are trying to get better court feel, better ground feel, right? Things like that. If you are just interested in the feeling and just kind of a different sensation when walking, these really take a lot of different concepts and put them all together. So it's kind of like a giraffe by committee, which is, an elephant. If they finally stock them enough, you go down to your local store and try them on. They're interesting to try on. Like I said, I think for a lot of people, the novelty is going to wear off and how mild the effect is versus other things that cost a fraction of the price. So don't think they're going to be the React X Rejuvenate. That's just, I think, the biggest thing I can tell you from this review. If you do want to get these, in terms of fit, they come in at 9.5 centimeters of metatarsal width, 9.5 centimeters of toe box width, a length of 20.7 centimeters, and then a toe box taper 36 degrees. They're just pretty mild. I will say because of the foam upper, they break it incredibly well, and you do want these 1-to-1. So I would say a narrow, medium, 2E. I think you just go true to size on these things. If you want to go up a half size, if you're a 2E or 4E, you can, but you will lose some of the mild benefits these do give you. And as you can see, this is already filled out because I already recorded this portion of the video and I rambled on and on and on for like 20 minutes and I had to tighten it down. So I'll just go through these right now and kind of explain why. In terms of a flat foot, they're going to introduce more strain to your posterior tibial tendon. Now, if you're using these as a little bit of a training aid, then you can do it, but not for daily use. Neutral arch, fine. High arched, as long as you're not unstable. I actually found them very comfortable for a high arch. I'm not unstable. Ankle sprainers, I think you're better off on a BAPS board, something else. Or if you're going to try to improve your proprioception, do it under a more controlled environment. Plantar fasciitis, too much instability, they're gonna strain your plantar fascia too much. Like I said, if you're using them for a training aid, different story. Achilles tendonitis, too much wobbling. And Achilles tendonitis, like I said, the Skechers Shape-Ups, those things, they're gonna clench down in your Achilles. They're gonna cause some functional equinus. Forefoot pain, too much wobbling. Arch pain, honestly, they're great. They adapt to your arch so well. That's gonna break down over time. You can't put orthotics in them because why would you, right? You completely defeat the purpose of the shoe. Big toe arthritis, too much movement, especially if it's rigid arthritis like hallux rigidus more. Knee up and back pain. I think if you use these sparingly, they're okay. But I think over time, if you use them too much, or if you're someone that's more unstable, like if you're somebody with instability, this is gonna be bad. Right? If you're somebody with weak muscle groups, this is gonna be bad. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with these. And honestly, for a wobble board type shoe, they are more stable than I thought they would be. And they do have a wild feeling underfoot. So that is all completely true. It is, like I said, it is different. You are gonna experience something different in them. Does it actually do anything? Like I said, mild. So just expect something mild and something for, it might be something that the novelty is going to wear off a little bit quicker than you would anticipate. So if you do want to see what I'm talking about with the React X Rejuvenate though, which is a phenomenal recovery shoe, just a phenomenal kick around shoe, make sure you click in this video right here. If you want to check out the Xenon Zen slide, check it out down below. I got discount codes because it is discount code to my shoe customization ebook down below as well. And if you are going to check these out, check out the affiliate links down below as well. All right, and make sure also subscribe down below. See you in the next video.